Okay, now hopefully you and your team have identified some areas that you're going to implement the PDCA cycle with and to determine how well they identify opportunities for improvement. So in this short video, we're going to spend some time talking a little bit about, in a broader perspective, the role of the PDCA and the cycles process, how to begin your overall assessment without getting into the details of the form, and to look at questions you want to look at over time. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the form itself and some of the key components. So let's get started with the PDCA cycle. We're going to start with what is the real purpose of this process. When you think about it, the purpose and the role that the PDCA cycle plays is this sort of iterative. We're going to test, we're going to modify, and we're going to test again. And obviously in between there is this very important process of replanning or rethinking what we're doing. And in so doing, one of the key elements that will come into play are the time periods that you select to determine, has there really been a change in quality as you go through the cycle. Ostensibly, it is possible that when you start, you anticipate that the first time period is going to be relatively long. And when you get done, you actually determine that, in fact, it actually took less time. So the next time you do a cycle, you would then want to adjust that time frame back down to the lower level. Why is that important? Because over time, we will be learning how quickly the interventions that you implement will have an impact. So two key areas, sort of this cyclical process of test, modify, and test, and the time periods. The second area that we're going to spend a little bit of time with was, how do I really, or do we begin our assessment? And I'm going to suggest that there's probably three things that you want you and your team to consider when you're done with each cycle. First off, what went well? Obviously, we're going to anticipate that we've selected the right indicators. We've got great causal relationships. So what went well? And then the second one is, what didn't go well? And that's sort of saying there's still some gaps in what we're doing. And the third question is, looking forward, what would we be doing different in terms of interventions, in terms of time sequencing, and other factors? So those are the three areas that you will focus on. As we look at changes in quality over time, you're actually going to see that, in fact, it's not going to be just a straight curve. What will happen is you will see something like this. If we plot quality against time, you might see that you have a plateau and then you stair step up. Plateau, stair step up. Or it might be sort of a slow, gradual increase, or in some cases, a rather rapid increase. Regardless, each of these curves gives us something that we can learn about our interventions. So the agenda that you have with your team is to constantly be focusing in on what are we learning, how do we do things a little differently. And what will happen is you will see a change in the behavior of your team, and most of that is going to be in a very positive way, meaning that there will be greater ownership and commitment to quality improvement. There'll be greater accountability in terms of the team wanting to be a key player in the process, and it will also be a great motivator. So that's sort of the PDCA cycle, sort of the one piece that we're going to look at. Now, let's take a look at the form itself. And for this, I'm going to suggest to you that there are three critical areas on the form. The first area is sort of the normative information. That's the team, the practice name, the cycle number, and so forth. The second critical area is the problem statement, and that is a critical component of what we're doing. And the third piece involves the working parts of the document. And in so doing, let's take a look at what we're talking about here. In terms of time periods, the first, um, the key here is that there is a beginning point and an end point. And at the end point, we do a pause and evaluate what's happened. There's an opportunity here in some cases to bring closure so that we're seeing a closing of the gap between the level of quality that we're trying to achieve and where we are today. And hopefully over time that gap gets smaller and smaller. So that's a key piece. The second one is having to do with always asking the question about our problem statement. Are we really comfortable with the causal relationship that we have proposed within our current assessment? And what we're looking for there is just simply, does our assessment of the problem come out in a very positive way that says we feel everything is very logical, there's a good causal relationship, and therefore we anticipate quality will continue to go up. And the third element of the form are the working spaces, number 3. And here again, there are things that we're going to be looking for. As you fill in the blanks, look at, is there some logic? Do the pieces that you collect link together to form a picture that says, when all is said and done, we're going to see quality continue to go up? If it doesn't fit well together, if you don't see that clear picture, then begin looking at some of those elements and asking yourself, are we really doing well in terms of our assessment? And the final analysis, the key, one of the other key areas is making sure that you always celebrate your successes. There is nothing more important than having time set aside where you and your team say, we did a good job, we've learned a lot, we're going to continue to improve, and what will happen is it will continue to reinforce the value of what you're doing. You know, in the final analysis, I think this is a great quote. Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skilled execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. We're going to stop now. This is the end of the second module. We look forward to seeing you in the third module, where we'll be talking about how do you implement quality improvement in your practice, which involves change management, looking at your personnel, building on their strengths, and hopefully creating over time what we will refer to as a continuous learning environment. Best wishes.